guys, so for today I'm going to be talking about why people should considering adopting animals from the animal shelter other than possibly a breeder. So my first question I have is that has anyone ever seen posts of animals from the shelter being on risk of being euthanized, as in other words being on the risk of being put down? This is something I'm constantly seeing a lot, especially in my local shelter, just because they're trying to advocate dogs and possibly cats and others being adopted as soon as possible and getting other people's attention, just because there's not enough room for animals in the animal shelter, because overcrowding is a big issue, not only in California but overall everywhere else too as well. And a lot of people would think that the reason why shelters have a lot of dogs is because they may be aggressive, when in this case it's not really the true to that. There's a lot of different, not perspectives, but there's a lot of different areas on why animals get put in the shelter, and that's just because one, they're homeless, so they kind of have no choice but to go there, just because we need somebody to watch them and protect them, and the animal shelter is the only place that can do that if you're homeless. And two, most of the issue is because of financial responsibility, which people don't have enough money or just attention or time to give to the dogs, or animals in general, so they have no choice but to take it to the shelter because that's what they think is best. And also, lost dogs go there as well too. I would like to say is that I just took a dog recently to the animal shelter just because I seen it lost currently and it was really hot. I couldn't keep it, unfortunately, just because I have dogs, so I had no choice but to turn to the animal shelter. A lot of them are abandoned from their owners too as well, or surrendered, and a lot of people surrender dogs there too, just because if they're moving somewhere and that place doesn't require or approve dogs or animals, then they have no choice but to get rid of it due to their own decision they make. But today I want to talk about why people should consider adopting from the animal shelter other than breeders. And I think adopting is important just because there's so many animals that need a home and want to be loved, and I think it's better for them other than just being in a cage and not having the proper life that they should have. And I do think that it is in our hands for animals, for the population to decrease, just because we can take advantage of spaying and neutering, which is one of the recommended things that I would recommend to help this population and overall help the animal shelter not be overcrowded. One of the biggest problems in the animal shelters is overcrowding, as I was saying, but there is a lot of animal shelters actually coming in every year, and it is increasing a lot. And for some research that I did find, about 5.8 million dogs and cats entered the animal shelter since 2025, which is a huge number in my opinion too. And it's just sad how those amount of animals don't get the life that they should get, unfortunately. But shelters do have to provide food, water, medical care, and a place to sleep, which is also really costly, but it's kind of hard at the same time, just because the government doesn't really fund shelters or anything like that, which I also really want to focus on too as well. And I feel like the government should give some type of more funding to shelters just because of the population rising. The animal shelter also needs a lot of workers and volunteers to take care of them, and I highly recommend anyone who's interested in the vet field or just animals in general to volunteer into their local animal shelter, because this will help not only work-wise, but also it will improve the animals' health and well-being, and it's giving them some type of affection. Yeah. And then in 2025, 4.2 million dogs and cats were adopted in the shelter, which is, I think, a slowly improving good amount. We like to see the numbers rising and not decreasing. But however, there was 597,000 animals that had to be put down just because of overcrowding situations, which is honestly really sad. But when people adopt, not only are they getting a pet, but they are also making room for another animal that needs help. And if a shelter has an animal adopted, that open space can be put for another dog that possibly needs it, and will possibly have them taken off the eyes list as well, just because there's more room available. The animal shelters, from my statistics, there was about 37% of the animals that were surrendered from their owners, just because in this case, one of the examples I can give is, if I haven't given it already, is if they just can't take care of it no more for financial reasons too as well. But there can be really many reasons to give up your pet, unfortunately. But this is why I think people should really think before getting a pet. I personally think a dog and a cat, or just any animal, is not just a pet, but it is family as well, and they're your family too, and you're their family, and they look at you as, you know, their family and their life. And it's important for us to maintain that character for them, of them feeling like they're safe with us too, and not scared or anything. Another important reason to adopt is that animal shelters can make great pets, and I believe that this is true, just because when I was little, my childhood dog was actually rescued from the animal shelter, and we picked him out, and he was only 6 weeks old, I believe, and his mom was on the urge of being put down just because she had history of being aggressive. And the puppies as well, him and the litter, were going to be on the urge of being put down just because there was no space for not even puppies. But I'm actually glad we got him, because he was a really good family dog, and he was very caring. And I feel like this is a good example, because I personally had a good experience adopting from an animal shelter. But yeah, I'm really grateful that I did give him a second chance, and that's why I advocate a lot of animals, that they're not all bad, they're all good really most of the time. Another simple thing people can do is share shelter animals on social media, which is what I was talking about earlier, because it helps get people's attention, and it brings them to the animal shelter to possibly look at dogs and adopt. Let's see, what else? I would say that in my conclusion, animal shelters have many animals that need homes, and these numbers show why adoption matters. And adoption can give an animal a second chance, as I was saying, and help reduce overcrowding and make room for another animal that helps. So the next time you know someone who wants to get a pet, I highly encourage them to visit the animal shelter or any place locally with animals. So yeah, I would highly advocate to go to an animal shelter so they could find their own dog, and possibly their best friend forever. And one picture that I do have, that I drew, I tried drawing me when I was little, when I was at the animal shelter, but I really don't know how everything was. I kind of just imagined it. This is the animal lady, the volunteer worker. She has a clipboard in her hand about possibly, information about that dog I'm holding. I know I'm bad at drawing people, but I'll get the hang of it eventually. But that's just me and my dog, my childhood dog, just showing affectionate, and me knowing that he's the one, and just properly just enjoying his company. And there's other dogs in the background that are unfortunately being put in the cage, and cats as well looking. The background kind of makes me sad, just because they're in there probably wishing that that was them. But we could make a change to that if we take advantage of adopting and not breeding from people. And I hope I convinced you onto why I believe that we should adopt and not possibly buy off breeders off the street.